Alrighty, Lionel with you, and this is another side of midnight. 800-848-9222. 800-848-9222. I'm glad you can be with us. If you're not with us, well, then forget what I just said. It's only for those who are with us, because you must be with us to hear us. Does this make sense? I hope it certainly does. My friends, we have a show tonight, which is just, a nonpareil. It is completely, it is sui generis, my friends. Yes, of course, there is the usual, almost prototypical, the expected references to UFOs and UAPs, with my particular take. Unexplained phenomena. By the way, how can phenomena be explained? If you understand what it is it really phenomenal? Just a thought. True crime, my favorite. Everything political, media manipulation, law, culture, the dread conspiracy theories, a term which is used so much and so often that it means nothing. Of course, technology, specifically focusing on the negative, history. And don't forget the words of Tolstoy, who said history would be a wonderful thing if only it were true. We'll talk about that, of course, mainstream media and how they overlook basically everything. And always with that, dare I say, that piquant commentary, analysis, humor, and complete derangement from you, our beloved caller, at 800-848-9222, because the callers make this. This is what makes everything. You, the beloved caller. I want to say something very quickly, as do most people. Whenever Memorial Day comes along, by the way, it's funny how sometimes people get Memorial Day and Veterans Day kind of confused, but you shouldn't be, of course. But Memorial Day is oftentimes spoken of in a way that is, I think, reverential, as it should be. I think it is said in a way to honor, to be appreciative of the dead who have died. In fact, as of today's date, there have been, since the beginning of our existence, about 1.3 to 1.5 million U.S. service members who have died in major military conflicts since the Revolutionary War. In fact, the deadliest, of course, is Civil War. Could be 655, maybe 700,000. In World War II with 405,000. So it has been 1.3 million. And there have been, you normally will hear somebody say that freedom isn't free. Freedom isn't free. They think that Colonel Walter Hitchcock first said that during maybe the Cold War era. Reagan made it very, very popular. Freedom isn't free. You'll hear this. It's almost become axiomatic. And it's true. It's true. Freedom isn't free. Meaning, and this is what makes me a little bit trepidatious, and I want you to think about this. They will say it as though that death and war are inevitable. After all, it's not free. And saying freedom isn't free, almost in a patellar, kind of a reflexive response. My fear is that it can unintentionally, and interestingly enough, encourage the kind of acceptance of sacrifice and death and war as inevitable, as natural, as even noble parts of maintaining liberty. It further frightens me that it conditions people to see the cost of freedom as permanent, unavoidable, and it frames my fear, loss and conflict, not as tragedies, not as errors, not as complete and total breakdowns of communications where politics fails, not as tragedies to prevent, but as necessary dues paid to preserve a society. Never become used to this. Never become to the position where you say, well, that's the way it goes. Hey, look, if you want to make an omelet, you got to break a few eggs. If you want to That scares me more than anything else because it's very easy to do that. Very, very easy. So, of course, think about what this is, but also think about the horror, the unnecessary brutality of war. I hate it. I despise it. When I grew up, my I don't know about you, but what I thought was I learned during Vietnam. I'll never forget that. I mean, I will never forget that, obviously, as long as I live. And I remember at the time the way we thought as a country and the way we had this almost like an accepted understanding that war was anathema to us. I remember in grade school, I don't know what year I was, fifth, sixth, it kind of blended together, but I had a POW bracelet. And I had the gentleman, it turns out he was a general, became a general, but he was in a bomber. And he wrote me after he returned safely. And we were very, very active, very, very active. Even in grade school, everything about our society then was open to this. The music, everything on TV, from the Smothers Brothers to you name it, peace signs, it was considered hip, de rigueur. It was considered, I don't want to throw a lot of bad French, au courant. It was the way that most rational citizens believed. You hated war. You hated it. You didn't applaud it. You didn't say, yeah, this is great. Hey, what are you going to do? It happens. No. And especially in a world that loves to pretend, at least axiomatically, loves to pretend that, if God and Jesus, and we believe it. I think Jesus and God would say, wait a minute, hold it. Pump the brakes, kids. Pump the brakes. This is not necessary. These are not, remember, sorties. They would refer to not bombing attacks, sorties, collateral damage, friendly fire. All these wonderful euphemisms. As a human being, as a living, breathing, sentient human being, you should abhor war, period. Sometimes it can't be avoided, but most of the time it can be, especially when you have people who seek to enjoy a tremendous profit from that. Now, before we get in, also, we have a lot to talk about this night. Oh my God, I've got topics. Again, we have Warrior Wednesday coming up at about 22 or so past the hour with my beloved to give you an update of what's happening in the world of child safety, digital predation, and the like. But this past week, this was one of the most fascinating things that happens. It's a part of our collective culture, and that is the end of Stephen Colbert. Now, is that interesting? No. But the reaction is, and the reaction from this absolutely waste of time media. These people, they made it sound like the day the music died, the end of civilization, the end of an era, gone but not forgotten. Oh, would you shut up? It was just the most biggest waste of time, this sanctimonious, lugubrious automoron. I will explain that concept in a moment. But the bottom line is simply this: the model is over. You see, when people are in something that they have been doing for a long time, and they have been rewarded handsomely for this, they tend to think that everybody feels the same way they do. That young people in particular look to late night TV with the same reverence, the same historical wherewithal, if you will, that we did when we grew up with Jack Paar and Steve Allen and Johnny Carson and others, that late night, even the whole notion of late night. Talk to younger people today. Remember, and most people in my generation don't. Most people in the media world don't. They forget them. They think that they're going to be perfectly or permanently frozen in this particular stage of their life. They're going to be concretized at that particular age, but they're not. But they're going to be, next thing you know, they're going to be 40, 50, and then running the show. But we lived in a time where we had the late movie. The idea that people turned off, that there were stations that signed off. Remember the Indian? Remember the test pattern? But you would come in and hear that, you would see the static. Ted Turner came along and said, why are we turning our stations off? Well, it's late. This is when Ted Turner introduced us to the notion of cable. We didn't even understand cable. We thought cable was just about a clearer signal. So he kept going 24 hours a day. It was wonderful because it's different times, as you know, around the country. We have 3 time zones. Imagine Russia has 11? Think about that. In any event, dear friends. So it was a different world, different concept. Then later, it was like experimental. Let's see what happens afterwards. Okay. Johnny Carson, probably the king, at least in most of our minds. I was more of a Jack Parr fan, but that's me. But you never really knew, in the case of Johnny Carson in particular, you never really knew his politics. Never. You just never did. I mean, he could tell you. People swear that they knew Walter Cronkite's politics, but they went through such great pains to identify commentary from news. He never really knew. Jack Parr, to an extent, was a little bit, he was a bit wistful, about different things, but still it wasn't over the top. Even during the time of Laugh-In, it was a little bit more, war. The Smothers Brothers was probably the first time it really became absolutely blatant as to what they thought and what they didn't believe. It was incredible. Well, then something happened. And its name was Donald John Trump. And it was the introduction of a pandemic called Trump derangement syndrome. And the people who ran the networks, the people who ran the shows, the people who wrote the jokes and the comedians, they tended to believe and share politically the same idea and the same thought. They were the same people who told you and me and members of our family that we couldn't meet on Thanksgiving, or we were disinvited. Remember during COVID, oh, you haven't been vaccinated? Get out. That was a different tragedy rather. But all of this maelstrom, this wild, this incredible, this so cultural riot of hating all things Trump bled into late night. And Colbert, maybe Kimmel, the most irrelevant, but still, they took over. And people began, again, people who agreed with this ideologically, understood that was familiar to them. But what they didn't understand was they completely abandoned and abnegated and turned their back on what the number one goal of these shows is, and that is gearing an audience, keeping an audience, and appealing to everybody. And then one day they said, we're not making any money on this. This is an anachronism. Nobody's setting their DVR to hear this. Half of the time, a lot of it is already on YouTube. You see, the people who run the shows, at least at that level, they never understood, they never grasped, never, the idea of digital platforming. Never. It was like alien to them, like shortwave radio, or almost like having a baby monitor. They don't understand what the frequency is. Kenneth. And now when it's all over, they're lamenting it and nobody cares. Nobody cares. I will continue with this. We have a lot to discuss. Oh my God. I'm going to throw some stuff at you that I promise you have not heard this weekend or this week, as we take you until the 5 o'clock hour, our time. Our number 800-848-9222. Coming up, it is Warrior Weekend, or Weekend Warrior, depending how you say it, with my beloved Lynn Shaw, as we bring you up to date and up to speed on what's happening regarding children and digital predation, among others. Inter alia. This is another side of midnight with Lionel. This is another side of midnight. My friends, this is a chance for me to have on, as we do, which is one of the most important, if not the most important, aspects of the show as we talk about what's going on right now. is Lynn Shaw from lynswarriors.org. Lynn's Warriors on YouTube at Lynn's Warriors, and on X, I still call it Twitter, at Lynn's_Warriors. Tonight's topic is going to be the coordinated assault on the nuclear family, parental primacy, parental autonomy, and the like. And it is time right now for you, my friends and others, to sound the alarm, because what we are witnessing, this is more frightening than any gray or critter or any type of Ebola, manufactured fear or otherwise, is what we are witnessing is not random. It's not happenstance. It is not disconnected. It is simply kids spending too much time online. What we are seeing is a systematic and the deliberate erosion of parental autonomy, parental primacy, and the destruction of the nuclear family. Without further ado, without further delay, without any hesitation, I bring to the microphones, in this particular case, our guest, my beloved, full disclosure, I love that, full disclosure, my beloved Lynn Shaw from Lynn's Warriors. Good evening and welcome back to Warrior Weekend.
Thank you, Lionel. I really want to talk about, put the parents, let's talk about parents, back into the picture, because we have so much of this discussion going on around kids, around online safety these days. This past week we had HHS, Health and Human Services, put out an advisory about kids are spending too much screen time, and they put out a toolkit, which is terrific. But in all this discussion, the one thing we're leaving out a lot is really talking directly about the parents. So that is what I want to discuss this evening or this morning, how we put the parents back into the picture.
Let us begin.
Well, okay. I want to say the Warriors were angry. And I think all Americans should also be angry, because every time a child is groomed online, radicalized, we're hearing a lot of that radicalization online. It happened online. A lot of these kids who are involved in these shootings, involved in these teen takeovers, they're learning it all online. Anytime a child, exploited online or psychologically manipulated online, right? The first response, the playbook, the first thing we always hear from big tech, from these different activist groups, and believe you me, they are, talk about being active. They're online, going after parents, right? Going after groups that are trying to put out correct information. And there are political operatives. They are always there with that same playbook message: blame the parents. They never say blame the algorithm. They never say, blame these billion-dollar, trillion-dollar corporations, big tech, engineering the addiction, which we know is true because of whistleblowers, leaked internal memos, all these different studies that have come out now. Never blaming the platforms that are profiting from all this chaos, confusion, and isolation. So we at the Warriors want to, really sound the alarm about, let's talk about the parents a little bit more, because we have in the news lately so many of teenagers angry, violently taking over schools, attacking teachers, this kind of organized mob behavior, mental health collapse. We talk a lot about youth mental health. Also the nonstop exposure that kids are, seeing, witnessing online constantly. And society keeps pointing fingers at moms and dads who are trying to do their best, but they protect this ecosystem that monetizes, right? Makes money off the backs of all our kids, off of all of us. So I really want to discuss how parents are being delegitimized, and the family unit is being treated, nobody's really talking too much about this, as this kind of outdated thing, right? While these corporations, influencers, I'll put in quotations, AI systems, and these platforms with these algorithms, those have become the new authority figure shaping children's morality, identity, even sexuality, their world view, and we're seeing the behaviors.
And also, by the way, Lynn Shaw from Lynn's Warriors, we're also seeing, and you've seen this up front and personal, not only personally, but anybody who's watched any of the current series of litigation involving parents bringing lawsuits against these companies. But we learned that the heads of these companies, from Zuckerberg on down, Bill Gates, they don't let their own kids watch this. In fact, in maybe you can refresh my recollection of this, but in China, the amount of time that a child is allowed on TikTok is what, 40 minutes a day or a week, who knows? But clarify that they don't even like their own platforms. Is that not correct?
It's interesting because TikTok, comes out of China, right? TikTok is one of the top platforms for kids. They're on YouTube, they're on Snap, they're on TikTok. Those are the three main ones, right? In China, their children are allowed 40 minutes a day, and then it shuts down. And the 40 minutes is comprised of healthy content. That healthy content, what they deem healthy content, is about education. It is about their country. It is about history. It is about nature. It can be about animals, but it's healthy content. But here in the United States, we don't have anything like that. Now, I want to get something out of the way, which I come up with several times a day. We at the Warriors are pro-innovation, pro-technology. This is the world we live in. We're not trying to ban a word we don't like, stop, attack. We're not doing anything like that. We live in this digital environment world. We want to make it healthy as possible for our kids, for our children, for our families. Because what is going on right now, we can look back over the history of, online world. The internet was basically born in 1996, so we have 30 years now. And especially in the last 2 decades, now we do have great studies, a lot coming forward. We see the problems with kids and with families, and we know what's going on, again, behind the scenes of these big tech companies who have no regulation at all, okay? Only businesses. There's nothing there for them. They're just a runaway train, the Wild West. And we know this is not accidental. We have seen the targeting. And listen, weak families create dependent populations. Isolating kids, well, they're easier to manipulate. Confused teenagers, easier to market to. And frightened parents are easier to silence. So that's what I want to remind everybody about. And I want to talk about that parental rights are human rights, and parents must remain the primary authority in their child's life, not Silicon Valley, not social engineers, and not unelected, these technocrats deciding, up on some hill somewhere, some house in Silicon Valley, right? In their T-shirt and bare feet, deciding what our kids should think, believe, or become, because they're allowed to, okay? Because there is no regulation, and the alarm bells are ringing, and America better wake up. We are waking up before this damage becomes irreversible. I really think this is an American crisis.
Can we, not to, I love to say this, not to interrupt, which makes no sense because we can do whatever we want. But yesterday, you and I had one of the rare opportunities of attending a movie at the cinema. We went to our local cinema, and we're walking, by the way, a half an hour of coming attractions. Come on, commercials, please. In any event, tell us what we saw and what you saw and what shocked you in a good way regarding an upcoming movie called Toy Story 5, I believe. I think this was absolutely poignant.
Well, it remains to be seen. First of all, I was kind of happy with the 25 minutes because the movie theater was crowded, right, on a Friday afternoon. I think that is terrific to see crowds out going to movies, and it kind of was enjoyable, just the buzz in the theater. But besides that, that's beside the point. There was a trailer for Toy Story 5, right? Toy Story has been around the franchise a long time now. And again, it remains to be seen, but the trailer was telling us about how the traditional toys, Buzz Lightyear and Woody and the other toys in a little girl's bedroom, right? This is an animation, this feature. They come out of retirement, or they come out of the boxes under the bed. They come out to fight big tech because the little girl, the character in the movie, she gets what looks like an iPad or a leapfrog, right? And she's taken with it, and she's on it all day long. Okay, so the toys come out to fight, and they're going to fight this new technology. And that's basically what the movie is about. The director is quoted as saying, our kids are on screens all day long. They're not playing with traditional toys. So let's create Toy Story 5 around this. But it remains to be seen, what that movie will actually
right.
is. A Disney Pixar movie. Is this, again, more propaganda that we're going to like our tech at the end? Our tech is friendly?
Right. They're going to be a good guy.
I'm thinking
right.
about, or we're going to use it in moderation, or they're all going to work together. Remains to be seen. But I thought the trailer was interesting. At least the subject is coming up. Or, which is usual, is Disney Pixar just smart? Because there's been such a backlash against children's entertainment, which has become very sexualized. Maybe they're trying now to appeal and get back. It's that dollar sign again, right, as the bottom line, to family entertainment.
Remember the other movie that we saw, which is interesting, was this documentary on AI in the same theater. And I thought that was the most watered down waste of time. That was it was billed as an expose. But let me ask you another question. Lynn Shaw from Lynn's Warriors. You use the term algorithm. How are algorithms changing childhood itself?
The algorithm is just something that big tech plants into content. Again, we know this because the whistleblowers have come forth, the internal memos that have been leaked, right? An algorithm, for instance, a child can be looking up something very simple. They can be looking up, what is an apple? And they may get the definition, in the first click. But by third, fourth clicks, they can be led down a path where they're on a porn, some porn site, that has the word apple in it. So they're fed the content. So kids are seeing things they're not even looking for. Because remember, the job, big tech thinks it's their job. Not thinks, it is. This is how they think. Keep those eyeballs on here. Keep the kids scrolling. Keep the ad dollars. The more they're on there, the more time, the more ad dollars that come in. Here's the thing. When a child sees something, when I say child, I mean minors, so like under 18, okay, kids, teenagers. Once something is seen, it can't be unseen. The little developing brains, right, that they're constantly in motion. If a child sees something, children naturally they question things, they're inquisitive, they want to see things. Let's say they see something sexual. They might continue on that path, right? Keep clicking, whatever's fed to them, because they're curious. It's not their fault. They're being fed content they're not even looking for. So we know that this is damaging. They're seeing things their brains are not ready to handle, or they haven't, things that haven't been discussed in the household. That's up to that parent. Again, let's get back to parental autonomy. That's up to the parent, what you want to discuss with your child. But again, because of all these devices, and kids ages 9 to 17 have access to 4 devices in their homes, the Chromebooks, the phones, gaming, laptops, they are seeing so much content that they're not ready to even handle. It's like a deluge, constant. The brains are constantly going, and they're constantly, it's like they're on this, it's an addiction. We have all the studies now, seeking more. And so they're seeing so much, again, that they most likely are not ready to handle. And what is that content? What is the thinking behind that content, or the point of view, not coming from the home, coming from a stranger?
So, by the way, we what I have read as well and talked to teachers and people that we know who are educators, the speed, the rapidity, the way that this information, it's like a tsunami, irrespective of what the message is, whether it's about nature or numbers or colors. A child is not designed to open up this box, this thing, this device, and to be attacked with stimuli, attacked with colors and sounds and flashes and lights. It doesn't work like that. And later on, because they do not learn how. Bill and I are from a generation where there was a time when boogieing was the most important thing on anybody's mind. Casey and the Sunshine Band, boogie, boogie fever, boogie down. Boogie was not a reference to some kind of a mucosal, or as we say, it was Tampa mocoso. Those were simpler times then. All we care now is about boogieing. now I have no idea what's going on regarding the world. By the way, as I was mentioning with my wife, we went to this movie house, as it were. I make it sound like it's Ford's Theater, but we saw something, and I saw a movie yesterday, a film if you're cool. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go, but I know I'm going to hate this. It's going to be stupid, and there's going to be nothing redeeming about it. Was I wrong? It was Devil Wears Prada 2. I know. You're going to say, what? Because we, of course, are required to immediately just be repulsed by this. One of the best, how do I say this? One of the best messages around. And what was the most interesting, because I'm always fascinated by the decline of American culture, is that the notion of, it was almost anachronistic. Fashion, Vogue, Dior, they were playing, Madonna's Vogue. We, as you know, are a nation of slobs, absolute sartorial pachyderms with our pajamas and slides and the ankle booties and just bonnets. The bonnet has, I don't know where this one came from, but whenever you see a bonnet, be careful. One of my favorite subjects to watch is, of course, on YouTube. I like to see people getting arrested. Specifically, if you want to see good arrests, you've got to see women getting arrested because they're out of their mind. The women that are encountered on these are just look up Karens getting arrested. And you will, it's a laugh riot. If you can put in somehow Karens getting arrested wearing a bonnet, oh my God. Something, I don't know what happens to the bonnet. Same thing what happens to the hoodie. When you take somebody who is marginally sinister, put a hoodie on them, and immediately they start slumping over, and they get this look of her. So anyway, to make a long story short, there I was watching this, and I'm wondering, kids today, I hate to say it, have no idea what this notion of this means. Fashion. What fashion? Remember something. I'm going to say it again because I have a lot to discuss. If you want to see the most fascinating and scary thing in the world, look at what's happening in our society. But some of the topics we're going to be talking about, religion is never going away. Why there is a resurgence in religion, but hardcore. And Catholicism is moving to the forefront. And by the way, if you ever meet somebody who is not of religion, somebody who is irreligious, somebody who might not be either a Christian, don't hand them a Bible and say, here, read this. That doesn't work. I'm just saying. We're going to be talking about how AI is closing in on your job at levels you cannot even imagine. Also, there's this wonderful story about AI-generated voices of youth and dead loved ones. We're entering the era of synthetic grief and digital resurrection. Is it ghoulish? Is it macabre? Absolutely. My friends, we have more coming up in this incredible version of this thing of ours. Hour number 2 of Another Side of Midnight with Lionel. 800-848-9222 on the Memorial Day weekend. I want to hear from you. And remember, if you have no idea what you're talking about, no problem. Alrighty, Lionel with you, and this is Another Side of Midnight. Hour number 2 of this thing of ours. 800-848-9222. 800-848-9222. By the way, you can always reach me at lionelmedia.com, and also on YouTube at Lionel Nation, where you can watch my varieties of stuff. This past week, one of the biggest stories, which I don't even know why it wasn't that big of a deal. Candace Owens sat down with, by the way, Candace Owens could be today the most powerful person. Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, believe it or not, this drives people crazy, much to the chagrin of many. One of the most powerful people on the internet today. especially right now as the power systems are shifting. What with the demise of Daily Wire and Ben Shapiro and others who are just, it's just changing. And why? That's for anybody to decide. But this week, she had the chance to sit down with Hunter Biden. It is one of the most fascinating interviews around. And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to try to tell people this, but they don't understand it because this is completely antithetical to what most people have brought up to believe. The left-right paradigm, this liberal, conservative, left and right, right or wrong, it's over. It's over. It is an anachronism. It is you're watching something that is fossilized. It is ossified. It is ancient. These things don't mean what you think. As I got to be very careful how I say this. There used to be these but these particular tests, these acid tests, these beta tests, these litmus tests to determine whether you were Republican or Democrat or conservative, whatever, and they don't apply anymore. Yet, the folks who still run the show don't understand this. They don't grasp it. They're not, and that's why the people who are lamenting the end of, this I don't know what you want to call it, the end of Colbert or whatever. It's the end of late night as a format, as a money-making failure, as a Goliath, this is just this albatross. It's this white elephant. It's over. The time, the model is done. Not necessarily the message, because if this thing made money, they'd be on forever and ever. The other thing I want to tell you about is you're hearing something, and I don't think that Americans, well, I know for a fact, because of our political system, our educational system is so absolutely devoid of any kind of serious rudimentary understanding when it comes to AI or anything involving science. They have no idea what we're talking about. None whatsoever. Remember hantavirus? That's gone. Ebola's coming. Oh, Ebola's a good one. A hot zone. Remember that? Ebola Zaire. There's Ebola Zaire. And there's Ebola Reston from Reston, Virginia. This is a kind of a benign version of it. This is a hemorrhagic disease where you bleed through your eyes, nipples, ears. It is the most horrid death there is. And they're cranking that one up because hantavirus didn't work, because it is the primary goal of all health systems, all governments, to keep you scared and worried and frightened and wear a mask and 6 feet away. Be afraid, be very afraid, because you are the best when you're frightened. And also, there's a weird kind of titillation that happens to people when they are frightened. Have you noticed how some people still wear a mask? Do you ever run into somebody like at a CVS or something that wears the mask under their chin and you're wondering, what is this? What is this? How is this in any way functioning or what have you? Next, in no particular order, because I have just a smattering of issues I want to get to you. Elon Musk, he vacillates between visionary and one of the biggest frauds of all time. It depends how you look at him. This SpaceX public offering, are you following this? Are you following this? The $100 billion or so, whatever it was from government, that didn't work out. The private equity, that didn't work. So now we're going to go to public performance, and he's going to try to get into pensions. People are saying, no, don't. But people, especially those, don't you love, especially the Wall Street wunderkinds who just kind of react to stuff. They're sitting back and they don't notice what's happening. But more importantly, what Elon Musk is doing something now, which is really frightening. Because remember what I'm telling you. A lot of stuff is very interesting, and we'll get to it eventually. the 4 different types of critters and the 4 different types and styles of, whatever they're called, extraterrestrials. Yeah. That's good. But before we get to that, there's stuff that's happening now which is even more frightening. And Elon Musk, right that way, here's his latest. Sometimes he just says these things, I think, just to say them, but he's predicting that in the very near future, as in now, humans will have chips implanted directly into their brains, creating a kind of a brain machine interface, which is going to be capable of giving people not only cybernetic superpowers, but being able to get the idea is that your memory will be able to be banked, debilitating diseases like Alzheimer's can be upended by virtue of this. So Elon says that technology could restore eyesight, allow paralyzed people to walk again, and even help the mute speak. Isn't that tantalizing? What could go wrong? And he described the coming breakthrough as, quote, Jesus-level technology. And these are kind of Jesus-level things he is talking about. And you may or may not have heard this before, but there is a concept called transhumanism. And transhumanism is a great idea. It sounds terrific. It sounds wonderful, especially when people are doing their best to try to fix things. If you have Alzheimer's or a stroke. But what happens if your brain is able to be hijacked? What happens if you have this brain interface? And when this is so sci-fi, when you are, let's say, charged with a particular crime, let's say one involving violence, let's say there is a way for them to activate or deactivate parts of your brain, limbic system, anger centers. Imagine being neutered, being neutralized, being made harmless by virtue of this. It was one of the greatest, the most wonderful dystopian things ever. Remember how they were talking about chemical castration? What if you have mental castration by reworking, recircuiting, reconfiguring the hardware of your brain? What could go wrong? It's happening. And they're slowly acclimating you to this. They're inching closer. They're habituating. They're conditioning you. They're having you get used to it so that one day you'll say, hey, this is terrific. This might be a way to perhaps maybe deal with the hyper-violent. The moment you open access to your brain, just like the moment you gave up your key and you turned it over to a fob where your car can be located and controlled at all time, you gave up a part of freedom that you will never be able to get back, my friends. Let's go to the phones, 800-848-9222. Eduardo is calling in Tampa. Eduardo, you're on Another Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Hey, Lionel, it's great to hear you. And I enjoyed your conversation with Lynn.
Absolutely.
I'm a patient transporter at Brandon Hospital. So I don't think that's something, I might be wrong, but I don't think that'll be something taken over by robots. And chips, that's already happening in China.
Stop for a second.
Okay.
You are kidding me, right?
About what?
You don't see patient transporting being taken over, not by robots, but AI. Not a robot. Robot is C-3PO. You'll be the first one to go. The first one to go. And it sounds so clinical. It sounds so perfect. Oh, absolutely. It might not be in the next 10 or 15 or 20. It might not be in your lifetime. But every single thing, absolutely. Don't ever say that. Famous last words. I can see on your grave, quote, I don't think they're going to take this over. Famous last words. Believe me. Believe me. Now, let me also tell you something that's going to happen. You're going to hear the first radio station, quote radio station, all AI, all of it synthetic, all of the talk show hosts, if there is talk show, all of the commentary, all the announcers, everything AI. Management will love it. No pain in the ass talent. They're never late. They're not drunk. They don't have problems. You pay them nothing, no unions, no health, nothing. In fact, no business, no buildings, no office, nothing. Absolutely is coming. I guarantee you.
You know, Lionel, I want to say that I think young people, I tell people this, that young people should not go into college unless they're going to be a doctor or a lawyer, but they should go into the trades. I saw a stat here where people that are less than 35 years old, they have $5,400 in savings. And if you're older than 75, you have $10,000 in savings. I got this from Bill O'Reilly.
Well, there's no question about that. If Bill O'Reilly said it, it's absolutely true. Do not question it at all.
Mm-hmm.
I like the way you said it. I got this from Bill O'Reilly. I hope to be in the position where somebody will say, well, it's true. I heard it from Lionel. Wow, that's okay. Yes. But there's two problems we have here. Number one, we have young people who don't look back. And number two, we have old people who only look back. Let me say this again. This week, people talked about the end of Stephen Colbert like it was the end of something that was critical.
Right.
They thought somehow that Donald Trump had killed free speech. Do you know how many, if you want political commentary, how many shows there are on YouTube? Just YouTube, not only Rumble and others as well. Are you kidding me? Eduardo, one of the most fascinating things that's happening right now, a podcast. I've got a friend in the radio biz who thinks that everybody who thinks that podcasting is stupid, and that everybody who has to have a kind of a constipated puker voice to sound like you're in radio, and that you're a professional. You're not a professional. The number one podcasting series is two girls, I think, and they're doing like true crime. Okay. Guess what that is? That is serialized vocal, almost like the days of radio, The Shadow and Jack Armstrong and The Lone Ranger. Look at how we're going back. Listen to this, to actual storytelling. It is radio of old, true theater of the mind. I like when people use the word theater of the mind. Most of the stuff I hear in commercial radio ventures, it's the last thing in the world that is. It's not theater of the mind. It's like theater of the, I don't know what, of the mindless or something. I'm not sure what it is. But look at what's happening. You've got young people, and right now podcasting is going to save this because it's talk radio. And of course, the people who are the ones in charge don't recognize it because they're interested in a stick and an antenna or something, or AM. I don't know what it is. The thing is, and by the way, thank you, Eduardo, for your great call. The thing is that what's important is that we're seeing variations change before our very eyes. And you have to step back and be able to see as a visionary what's happening next. And the good news is that young people, in particular, are recognizing what used to be the hallmark of radio, true serialized spoken word. Phenomenal. We have more coming up on another side of midnight with me, Lionel. Though the harmonic is good. You're killing me. That's enough of that. All righty, Lionel with you, 800-848-9222. Coming up, we are becoming a therapy nation. We're becoming a weak-willed, simplified bunch of little crybaby, spineless, atesticular dwarves who are into this therapy nonsense, which I'll get to in a moment. I'm feeling in a good kind of a feisty mood tonight, but I want to talk specifically with you, 800-848-9222. That's the number. Let's go back to the phone. Let's go to Dave in, where is this? I don't know, Pennsylvania. Dave, you're on another side of midnight with Lionel.
Western Pennsylvania. And Lionel, I mailed you from Western Pennsylvania, you and Walter Sterling, an official USPS postcard that praised you for putting me on the air to take calls one evening.
Dave, let me tell you something. Dave, let me tell you something. There isn't anything in the world that I am more proud of than by giving you the opportunity to speak, to explicate, to limn, and to describe whatever the hell it is that you're talking about. And let me tell you something. On behalf of a grateful nation, I thank you. And please call me again. 800-848-9222. Seriously, sometimes I can take it. Sometimes I can't. This ain't one of those times. Jim in Aston, New York. You're on another side of midnight with Lionel.
Hi, Lionel. I like the segment with your wife about Lynn's Warriors. I had that issue with one of my granddaughters.
What was the issue? What was the issue, sir?
She had a child predator on Roblox grooming her to take naked pictures of herself.
I can't believe you said that.
And
I'm
he
sorry, go ahead.
presented himself as a 14-year-old. He was a 28-year-old somewhere in Pennsylvania. Now, I bought a beautiful bucolic farm up in the Catskills like Mayberry, yet this could still access my house.
Jim, my wife will be so happy to hear. I mean, not happy to hear. It's sad to see it. But
Now,
Roblox,
we went-
what you don't know how many times parents have said this, that their kids, and you can sit down and you can ask them if you could say, why did you do this? They have no judgment. And they have people who understand child behavior and psychology better than anyone. They are the predator's predator. So I'm glad you brought that up, and I hope people take heed, sir.
One other thing. We went to the state police, and they took her phone, and they said it's going to be at least 6 months before we could even look at it. We have so many cases like this. And nothing ever came of it. We wanted to press charges. But my original phone call was about AI and Elon Musk. I go back and forth with him from being like this wonderful genius to like Antichrist, and you don't know, and people don't realize what's really coming with AI. We just in the baby steps of AI now.
No.
And then you have AGI and then ASI, super, where it can train itself and change its code. They want to put guardrails on it.
Put it this way. Not even ASI, as you say. No. This is called this is called recursive self-improvement. This is where it writes its own code. And artificial superintelligence, this is a kind of a hypothetical future stage. But when it hits singularity, to use the term, when it becomes smarter than us, it's over. See, let me explain. I'm so glad you bring this up. We have this idea somehow that humans are the best, that people, they don't want to hear a song written by AI. Why not? No, they want to hear a song written by why? What is so special? What do we do that only humans can do? Think about that one. I'm being dead serious. Now you could say, well, obviously have children and, things like that. But aside from that, it's an interesting thing, Jim. There are some sports, for example, that could you ever see man against robot as they become more dexterous and more, would you ever want to see like Dana White have, the Gracie jiu-jitsu against a robot? I can see that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Could you ever see, something so work. For example, Magnus Carlsen, who was the GOAT, who was the greatest chess player, perhaps maybe of all time, said that even the most simple of chess programs in your phone can beat him. But yet we still want to see human against human. So that's great for competition and the like. But see, what happens is, Jim, we are unimaginative. And we are training people not to think ahead, not to think of the dystopian, not to think of where this could go out, how this could become out of control. This is scary stuff. And I don't think people really, I'll put it this way, I don't think anybody is able to handle it. Not only that, and also people, especially when it comes to Americans, they're just too busy with their own lives. And of course, Memorial Day, what does that mean? Barbecue, though our weather's going to preclude that. I'm sorry, I spoke too much. Proceed, sir. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. Yeah, and even the trades aren't safe. Elon Musk converting one of his Tesla factories to put out these robots that can replace the trades. And he's saying that even most surgeries would be done by robots, and that these robots can replace any manual labor. And he said they never get tired, they don't take breaks, they don't sue you. Even if a robot costs $50,000, you're going to pay a tradesman double that. You know what I mean?
And
so
you don't have to worry
nothing
about retirement. You don't have to worry about
Right.
workman's comp.
pensions.
Listen, I thank you, my friend. Thank you. Please call me again, Jim. You know, this is something which is so critical. Why is it? Especially remember, you may not want to hear this. You may not because of your age or whatever it is, but to somebody who was born in captivity, a young person may say, I'll talk to an AI person. I don't care. They don't see anything different about it at all. Let me also tell you something which is a problem. There was a wonderful book called Therapy Nation that came out. And there's a growing number of mental health professionals, because let me tell you something. Mental health is huge. I know some of the most bat blank crazy people that I deal with, have to deal with at all levels of my life. Mental illness is now hitting colors and variations and frequencies never even imagined. But there's a whole bunch of mental health, professionals and experts who are raising some big concerns that this modern, I guess you'd call it therapy culture, is going to be encouraging grievance and emotional fragility and blame shifting rather than being tough and resilience, personal accountability. So in this, it's a very interesting point. I was reading the review and a critique tied to this book, Therapy Nation. This Jonathan Alpert, this psychotherapist, argues that many therapists now prioritize validation over challenge. And what they do is they want you and all of your friends and all your children to reinforce the idea that every disappointment, every disagreement, or every emotional discomfort is evidence of trauma, toxicity, abuse, failure. We are growing the biggest bunch of wussies anybody has ever seen. I say this again, and I'm going to keep saying it. You have to watch and become familiar with, if you want to see how bad the culture is, look at what's happening when people are arrested, what police officers deal with. There was this time when you got pulled over, you would say, all right, officer, thank you. Give me the ticket. Thank you, sir. License and registration? Yes, sir. Hands on the wheel? Yes, sir. Or ma'am. Absolutely. Okay, thank you, sir. That's it. Step out of the car. As you will, sir. By the way, there's this idea that somehow you can't be asked. I don't know why. You can't be asked to step out of the car. Anybody watching this knows this one case called Pennsylvania against Mims, where the Supreme Court said that when you are in detention, and detention merely means pulled over, you are in custody. When you are pulled over by a police officer, you are stopped. You are detained. And you can be asked to get out of your car. And if you do not get out of your car, you can have the window shattered and you can be dragged from the car. Isn't that something? Absolutely. You can be dragged from the car. Do you hear me? Dragged. And I watched this with such excitement because I'm saying, break the window. And there was these unique hole punches, these little devices, these little tiny spring-loaded little, they don't look like much, but they just shatter your entire window. And you get pulled out. And invariably, people will say to police officers, why are you stopping me? I don't like the way, I'm feeling uncomfortable with this. I don't like this. I don't like you. I don't recognize your exercise. Leave me alone. Give me license and registration. No, I don't have to. Let me speak to your supervisor. You cannot believe. And it's part of this idea where authority doesn't matter. If you don't like something, if you don't like the feeling behind it, you have to be careful. I'm telling you, something happened to us. And it's because of this therapy nation that we live in. It's a group of people who feel that whenever they feel bad, whenever they feel lonely, whatever it is, they are able to just argue. They can, don't get me started. Don't get me started. Tom in New Jersey. Tom, you're on Another Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Good morning.
Yes, sir.
I have an odd scenario for you that I think you might like. Do you remember the Twilight Zone, the Obsolete Man episode?
Oh, yes. When he says,
Okay,
with Burgess
now,
Meredith.
yeah.
Burgess Meredith, right? You're a bug.
Okay.
You're an insect. Yes.
No. He was a librarian. Yeah. All right. So remember the Chancellor?
No, wait. Stop for a second. Stop. Please stop. Let me finish. Let's make sure we know what we're talking about. Was this Burgess Meredith?
Yes. He was.
This is where the bomb went off, and he found himself in a library, and he could spend the rest of his life. And then his glasses.
In his own room, but it was a library room, and he was a librarian.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So you remember the scene where Fritz Weaver was on the top of the pedestal, and he's yelling down at him.
Yes.
Yelling down at Burgess Meredith, "You are obsolete."
That's what I said. Yes. Right. Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, could you imagine instead of Fritz Weaver on the top, it would be a robot yelling down to a human saying, "You are obsolete." Could you imagine that episode as a Twilight Zone?
Oh, absolutely. And people still, and not only that, this has been around since the days of Asimov and Heinlein. Every sci-fi writer has been basically presaging this.
Oh, wait a minute. So what I just said is not new?
What, the idea, the fear? No, of course not.
No, the scenario I came up with, that's something that was already done?
It's been done since man first. How about just robots taking control?
If I would have known this, I would have never called.
Thank you so much, my friend. Call me again. Don't you love that confidence? That is the weirdest call. 2001. Open the pod bay door, Hal. Sorry, Dave. This is the oldest story in the world where the machines take over, where the machines are in control. Since the beginning of time, this has been a part of our, my God, since I'm sorry. It's not exactly novel. Now listen to this one. There's this artificial intelligence scribe system, SCRIBE. And it's now used in thousands of doctors' offices, and they're facing growing, concern or scrutiny after this Ontario government audit found repeated inaccuracies during testing, including fabricated information, missing details, incorrect medical notes. And the software, by the way, is designed to listen during appointments and automatically generate physician notes. Like you'll see, if sometimes you can always say, never miss a meeting again. Just set this to, okay, fine. And this tech is being promoted as, time-saving breakthrough. According to this Auditor General from Ontario, all 20 approved AI scribe vendors tested showing at least one significant problem during evaluation, including, listen to this, so-called hallucinations, where the software generated information that never occurred. Never occurred in the recorded conversation. And officials warned that inaccurate notes could potentially contribute to, of course, harmful, incorrect treatment. So these officials are stressing that errors were found during testing rather than in live patient appointments. But I'm telling you right now, these AI platforms are being used everywhere, so that when you go to the doctor, somebody is listening to you and it will transcribe your condition. And one of the things which we are losing also, and what doctors have to realize, is that there has to be the human interaction aspect of this, where these devices, these systems listen to you. Okay? Gary in New Jersey. Gary, you're on Another Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Oh, hi, Lionel. Your show leaves us all spellbound, and AI will not replace a host like you because you're too creative. But I just like to say something, like bringing up social media. And
I hate to say this. Let me stop you right there just for a second. I disagree with you. If the people hiring the hosts are themselves not creative, if you have people who own media companies who are themselves not very bright, not very creative, and just look at everything as cost cutting, you better believe it'll be replaced. Absolutely. Not because of the worth, not because they're better. But remember, if you've got a moron running an organization, what do you expect? And this goes for restaurants, doctors, anything. So I have faith really in no one, but proceed, sir.
Right. Well, the biggest problem if you're a talented person and you're surrounded by morons because they have to hire them for whatever reason, affirmative action or something, it's crazy. We know that. But the thing is, like with social media and stuff, but I think people also use it for exaggeration. Like they talk about this guy, Luigi, right? But O.J. Simpson, when he was in jail in Nevada, he would get thousands of letters from women, not just marriage proposals, but that he was done wrong. They would send him money so he'd be the biggest guy at the commissary. He'd be Big Daddy at the shop, And even one of the two Boston terrorists, the two brothers, the one brother turned the other brother into a speed bump.
Zarnea,
he would
right?
Get love, he'd get love notes and stuff. But I think there's more people who are doing this purposely, and they have nothing to do with wanting to marry him. I wouldn't be surprised because communist China uses our social media. So I'm not saying all of them, but I would say about half the love notes that come to Luigi and O.J. Simpson are manufactured by people who are playing around with our social media and spreading propaganda.
Well,
that's what they're doing.
I don't think that's impossible, but I don't believe that's true. Do you know, by the way, there's another phenomenon? Not only people who do that, but people who falsely confess to crimes. During the Lindbergh case, Bruno Richard Hauptmann, who was facing the death penalty, the number of people who called up confessing, knowing they'd be put to death. It was just incredible. There's this weird thing that happens. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, they went crazy after him. I mean, they loved him. Ted Bundy married a woman when he was in prison. I mean, he was at least a little bit more charming, and Ramirez may have looked better than let's say, John, Gacy or something. But it's not just that. There's a strange phenomenon. Look at who our heroes are today. Who are, like, for example, who are the American heroes? Who? Can you name, what was the last military hero we had in this country? Who? Petraeus? Who? I don't know. Gary, I thank you. Don't ever change, sir. Paul in Connecticut. Paul, you're on Another Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Well, good morning, Lionel. Mental Health Awareness Month is May this year, and something that can be helpful is called dialectical behavioral therapy. DBT.
What is that, sir?
It's basically, it says for people to keep it in the present moment, like keep it in the here and now for their day, live in the moment and not
what does that
worry
mean?
About the past or the future. They charge big dollars for this.
But that's easy for you to say.
We learn that.
But that's easy for you to say. Don't worry about the past. What I mean, that sounds
some
easy.
Of the people, they cut themselves. There's a lot of it that can be somewhat upsetting that I've seen.
Why do you think people cut themselves? Why?
Well, either they like to. It's that some of the girls get a thrill out of it, and then there's some that are just, psycho.
Wait a minute. Excuse me. Stop for a second. Slow down for a second. You're throwing out. You said some people cut themselves for the thrill of it, and other people are psycho. You don't think cutting yourself and harming? Let me finish. You don't think that cutting yourself and harming yourself for the thrill of it is crazy?
Well, it's the thrill of it. They may be attention seeking in a way if they don't do it too deep.
Have you given this any thought whatsoever? Are you at all familiar with anything involving people who hurt themselves, cut themselves? Have you ever given it?
I've seen it in the hospital. The girl cut her wrist right in front of me one day. She broke a light bulb on the ground and cut.
But what did that tell you? I mean, what is that? Do you know?
She was very distressed at the time, young and distressed. I saw her 40 years later, and she said, "Remember me?" I said, "Yes."
You saw her 40 years later? How did you see her 40 years later?
I had a weekend where I ended up in a psych unit in a hospital, and
you yourself as a patient, you were?
Yes.
What were you in the psych unit for, sir?
I took took a lot of medication. I was just worn out at the end of my rope, and I walked into a doctor's office and I told her I took 15 morphine tablets, and then I needed to have an ambulance called. Mm-hmm.
Did you take 15 morphine tablets?
Yeah, I went to the hospital and fell asleep for 2 or 3 days, and then they...
Were you trying to kill yourself?
No, but they were. They said, "We have a place for you to rest for a week."
Let me ask you something, sir. Were you trying to kill yourself?
No.
Let me stop you right there.
Depressed,
you took
I was
15.
Just at the end of my line.
Okay,
I needed to rest.
I understand that. Listen to what I'm saying. You took 15 morphine. You knew that could kill you, right?
Well, the dose, I've handled bigger doses, but I wasn't drinking at the time.
So I'm curious. You were at the end of your rope. Were you trying to get attention? Numb yourself? What?
Difficult time. I was having a difficult time. I was just
no. Listen to what I'm saying.
Stressed,
I'm not asking you. No. Wait. Stop for a second.
Stressed.
Hang on a second. Stop for a second. I'm not saying you weren't. That's obvious. What were you trying to accomplish? What was your goal?
Well, to sober up.
By taking 15 morphine tablets to sober up?
Well, I had to. If you have to get, I had to get into a hospital so I could get the process started.
So let me get this straight. You took 15. So you took 15 morphine tablets in order to get the process going, to get you into the hospital so they could address your sobriety challenges.
But I also had a little bit of an episode. I was I got sick from taking antidepressants. Mm-hmm. And another one called Ativan.
The
combination made me not feel right. I called my sister, and she said I was sick and I should go to the hospital.
How are you now, sir? How are you now, right now?
Well, right now I'm not drinking. I have 2 weeks sober. And
good for you, sir. Are you seeking help? Are you seeking therapy? Are you seeking any kind of attention right now, or some type of medical treatment?
I have medicine at home.
Is it working?
Well, it's working. I took something called clonidine, and
when you say it's working, what is it?
Anxiety medication called Buspar.
What is it? Yeah, I know that Buspar. Buspar is a.
It's for anxiety, but they also gave it for something. What's it used?
Here's my question. How do you know something is working? Many people complain that the pills they're taking sometimes will numb them, will cause other kinds of problems. It will extinguish a particular behavior, but it doesn't necessarily help. What would make you better if you could just pick anything up? Not a medication, but what do you want to feel that you're trying to either eliminate or change in terms of how you think and process?
Well, feel healthier and be more positive. And, be a little more active.
Do you think the medication sometimes do you think sometimes the medication sometimes will affect your ability to be active and to be positive?
I've had, for example, the benzodiazepines, Valium, Xanax, Klonopin.
I'm not asking you to give me a list, because a lot of people
sit me in a chair, and I won't want to do anything for 2 years.
Hey, Paul, listen, I thank you myself, and I wish you nothing but the best. I hate when anybody even begins to opine, when somebody even tries to guess about why this is, about why people act, because we're not professionals. I certainly am not a professional. But after this, I want to tell you what I've learned about people who cut, what a layman thinks about it, and why it's one of the most fascinating subjects. And like anything else, if you try to find out why people do it, suspend your own sense of reality, listen to what other people are saying, and try to understand the mechanism of the behavior, not whether it's right or wrong, or not whether you've ever felt it. We have more coming up. I'm going to explain to you cutting, which is fascinating, on Another Side of Midnight with Lionel. Anyway, my friend, Lionel with you on Another Side of Midnight. Let me preface this by saying, obviously, I'm not a professional. I'm not anything. I'm just fascinated by the permutations of aberrant or aberrant human behavior. And we talked about people who cut themselves. And it's something that, remember, if you or somebody that you know or love are in the midst of this particular episode or episodes like this, do not hesitate for a second in seeking professional help, obviously. But as I've studied this, as I've heard this, as I've read about this, people who cut themselves as a way to cope with overwhelming emotional pain. This is as it's described: anxiety, kind of a numbness, anger, trauma, or feelings that they can't easily express. And for many people, by the way, it's not about wanting to die in the least. Instead, it can become, at least the way it's presented, as a way to temporarily release kind of emotional pressure, regain some sense of control, or as they say, this is an interesting concept, to transform or to convert emotional pain into physical pain that feels easier to manage. It's complicated, but it might be releasing tension. It might be punishing. It might be feeling something. This notion of, remember that, who was it, 9 Inch Nails? Johnny Cash redid it. I cut myself just to feel, just to bleed, just to know I'm here. This is something that, remember, if you're in the position of dealing with this, years ago, Tom Cruise, who spoke rather negatively about psychiatry and the like, pursuant to one of the, I guess, the positions of Scientology. They are absolutely against psychiatry, psychotropic medication, and this sort of thing. And I can kind of sort of dig maybe a little bit. But if you've ever had to see something involving a full psychotic episode, it is one of the most tragic things you have ever seen. And how it hits, oh my God! They're normally in their 20s. I'm trying to get this woman's name. You got to read this one woman. She's fantastic. They're in. Oh yes, Ellen Sachs. This is a prominent legal scholar. She has a PhD in psychoanalysis and a JD, and she's schizophrenic. She's schizophrenic, and it's called The Center Cannot Hold. And it normally starts, you're in the prime of your life. Your world is ahead of you. You've just been accepted. You're in college, or your child is. And invariably you'll get that call, and the call will come from campus police or your son or daughter's roommate, and your child is maybe nude or screaming or scaring or threatening or not bathing, not showing grooming or physical care. And you think, oh no. And then you turn to the professionals. And people like Tom Cruise would come along and they would say that we are a drugged society. And that may be true. And that we are dealing with the big thing now is SSRIs. Oh, the SSRIs, stay away from them because they make you crazy. Who was it? Kamala Harris's daughter-in-law, the model. If she's a model, I'm Eleanor Roosevelt. And she, of course, came out because SSRIs, and again, I'm not an expert in this, but there's a suggestion that SSRIs make you crazy. And SSRIs, there was a recent episode between Theo Vaughn and Joe Rogan. You might have heard about that one. And the bottom line is simply this. The people who tend to need SSRIs might be experiencing a certain degree of psychiatric problems, fugues, whatever you want to call it, which causes them to take the medication in the first place. So consequently, they may have a greater propensity or tendency to commit self-harm or hurt somebody else. So correlation versus cause, it's another story. It is so complicated. So many people that you see on the street, the real problems are people who believe they should be institutionalized. We'll get that in a moment. We have more coming up. I haven't even scratched the surface of everything I want to talk about on this, our Memorial Day version of Another Side of Midnight with me, Lionel. More coming up, so stay tuned. Alrighty, Lionel with you. Our number is 800-848-9222. This is this is Another Side of Midnight. It's not the another side, it's another side, the other side, it's Another Side of Midnight. I love stuff that will probably make you say, ew. And if you say, ew, I'm loving it. And the first thing is maggots. Maggots. What a fascinating story. I have loved the story of maggots. They're incredible. There was this case of a man who had terrible, terrible decubitus bed sores. He had this sore on his left heel, then on his buttocks, and the wounds became infected with this foul, smelly, awful, rancid, fetid, rotten, putrescent funk. I mean, this was this poor man. So what they did was they took, this is very interesting, these FDA-cleared medical devices. They're called maggots. That's right. They're germ-free. They're made sure. And what they did was they applied the maggots to these areas and that were putrescent and putrid and fetid and just decomposing. And the maggots went right for it. And it wasn't that they ate anything, but during the course of their attack, they would release these kind of digestive juices and secretions that would debride, in essence, and remove a lot of the diseased portion, the dead portions, and people who just, there was nothing they could do, had their wounds return to that pink, healthy look because of maggots. Because it was somebody who is able to think outside the box. But again, when you try to tell people this, they will say, ooh, that's icky. Here's one for you, which, let me see if I can say this, because I think it's nothing but fascinating. There are more people who suffer from lower GI. You've heard about gut health that we talked about. No, eat kimchi and miso for your gut health, for your biome, your biota. People who've suffered from ileitis, colitis, IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, horrible. It's just, and C. diff, by the way, especially in older people, will kill them. Diarrhea to the point where this is life-saving. But because we have this icky, because we have the mentality and the medical knowledge of an 8-year-old, we say, ew, maggots, ew, diarrhea, ew, or we'll laugh. That's my favorite. We'll laugh. For reasons I don't know. Whenever we talked about colon cancer and colonoscopies, and people would always, again, giggle or it's the weirdest. We're like children. Well, here's something interesting. So I read about how The Chinese, I don't know how many centuries ago, figured a way, and I'm not going to venture a guess as to how they did this, but there was something called, please bear with me, I'm not trying to be, it's late, fecal transplantation. And what they would do is a lot of times they find that people who have lower GIs, their biota, their biome, their gut health, as you would say, is all just gone, screwed up, out of whack. So they would take people who had normal gut health, a normal balance of E. coli in the right and the rest, and they would take their fecal matter and process it and transplant it into the individual who suffers from this incredible, irregular, problematic misbalance or unbalance, whatever you want to call it. Almost miraculously, in some cases, people were cured 100%. They were going to go through surgery, all kinds of, it's brilliant and brilliant. And I just thought, God loved these people who say, I've got an idea. Remember Ignaz Semmelweis. People always think it's Louis Pasteur, but Ignaz Semmelweis was the OBGYN who decided, let's wash our hands before delivering babies. At medical hospitals, which is redundant, I guess, versus a veterinary hospital, when they would sometimes get done with their rounds, they would go to the morgue and do either autopsies and they never washed their hands. And then they would deliver babies. We laugh at that. And people were wondering, I wonder why all this postpartum, this post-birth, why all this horror? Why these problems? What's going on here? Well, lo and behold, somebody said, Semmelweis said, I think maybe if we wash our hands. And they looked at him like, what are you, nuts? Are you crazy? It's the most incredible thing in the world. It was just, so it's one of those things, one of the things that fascinates me about somebody who looks at how we do things and asks themselves, maybe let's find out more of the reason of what's happening. Let's look at what's happening with this one. But the maggot system I just found absolutely phenomenal. Here's one for you. Adults are now reliving musical camaraderie by going to band camps for grown-ups. I am telling you right now, one of the greatest things that you can ever do, especially now in your latter years, if you've never played an instrument, is to take up an instrument. It is the most incredibly important and critical thing, especially for young people. And what it does is it teaches you math, it teaches you left and right hand coordination, and it teaches you to do something which is so soothing and so gratifying. And the first thing I would do is pick an instrument that you can carry around. Pianos are great, but you can't carry them with you, maybe a portable keyboard. If you want to do a harmonica, I would suggest something you can get to, something that's not hard. Tubas, glockenspiels, I kind of wait. But lo and behold, when a child is taught to think left and right hand, to learn the math of what's going on, and you can learn everything you want on YouTube, everything. I don't care what it is. The instructions are there. So apparently, what a lot of older people are doing, older folks, is they're going to these music camps. Also, when rockers look older, they get gray hair or they're bald or what have you, they don't look like the same, rock monster that they did before. Like Larry Carlton. Larry Carlton is one of the best jazz and rock guitar players, studio. Lee Ritenour, a lot of people. And to look at them now, you would think, oh, they're grandpas. Yeah, maybe. But they can play now better than they've ever been able to play. Carlos Santana and others, because of their genius. So anyway, as you get older, please, I'm asking you, I'm telling you, I'm suggesting. In addition to all of your other working out and walking and all that stuff, learn an instrument. It is never too late. Trust me when I tell you that. Let's go to Sherry. Sherry in Illinois. You're on another side of midnight with Lionel.
Hi, Lionel. I miss you so much, as do other my friend listeners that we talk on the phone, and they're all looking for different radio stations to listen to overnight.
No, wait. But I'm on the weekends. I'm here. Listen here.
Yes.
Saturday, Sunday. Just
well, not
join
on
me
WGN.
here.
You're only on our Friday night or early Saturday morning.
Well, I think protest and anything short of violence, please explain away
No. We're not violent people. We're just...
That was a joke. See, Sherry, that's called sarcastic. It was called... Yeah.
And by the way, hello?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I'm here.
And Raleigh, Raleigh James is on Monday through Thursday.
What is with this Raleigh James? You call all the time, you talk about Raleigh James.
Oh, Raleigh James, she's on in Chicago.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Sherry, I love you to death. Who cares about Raleigh James right now? Sherry, who cares? Why are you talking about her? Well, let's talk about us now.
You just had a call from Eduardo, and I think you kind of cut him off. And he's a staple for Raleigh, and he's very nice.
Okay, Sherry, thank you so much. Have a nice day. Call me again. First and foremost, don't call somebody and say, let's talk about another host. That's number one. Number two, when you say you cut somebody off, we have time constraints. You don't cut somebody off. And then the third thing is, complaining about times and have you on. I appreciate it. You meant no harm by it. But it's just as like people are thinking, what are you talking about? And this is like the second or third time you call, you talk about this Wally, Sherry, Raleigh, whoever this is. And I think that's great, but why? Jeff in Jersey City, you're on another side of midnight.
Hello, Lionel, and my gratitude to you and your wife, what you do for, the children. I think that's, a serious thing. So anyway, I just thought I would say that. You're welcome. And I the way you opened the show, it touched me. You spoke of how the Vietnam War affected everything in our society. I mean, culture, our newspapers, television, fashion, and that was it. And I just wrote down a couple of notes of two men in particular. You know how we talk about.
Let me stop you first of all. Were you in Vietnam?
You know what? I was in high school when the whole thing. I'm a couple of years older than you. So when we were in high school,
you did not. You did not. Wait.
No,
I did not. You did not, sir.
No, okay. I did not.
It's funny because I'm looking. Hang on a second. Because I'm looking at my screen. It says I served in Vietnam. So there might have been some kind of a confusion.
I didn't. That was not my intention. And you know what? It's not always easy. I tried talking to the screener and to explain myself. And before I knew it, I didn't hear him anymore. And so I no intent. I'm not going to misrepresent. 1971.
No.
But I signed up, and part of it was people were hysterical. Oh, we're going to be drafted. Well, you know what? It was like the number was if you were below 100 or something like that. Pretty good chance you were going to go. So I said, you know what? I'm going anyway. I supported the president. And when I graduated in 1970, I was 17 and I left high school in June. By September, I was in Paris Island, and wherever I was going to go, I was going to go. I didn't end up in Vietnam. I didn't know if I was going to go or not, Anyway,
where did you end up?
I ended up in Camp Lejeune in North Carolina, and little cruises here and there, different ports of ours, or whether it be Norfolk.
Why did you not go to Vietnam Why did you not go to Vietnam in 1970?
Because Nixon promised to withdraw the troops. What he was concentrating on was air power, and he wanted to destroy the.
That is very interesting. You're a very lucky person. A Marine not going. By the way, Jeff, I'm going to put you on hold. I'm going to continue talking to you, but I must take a much needed and required interruption of source. We're going to return to Jeff. Our number is 800-848-9222. This is Lionel with you on Another Side of Midnight. Already Lionel with you on Another Side of Midnight. We were talking to a friend of ours, our new best friend, who was talking about the Vietnam War and his experience. This is Jeff in Jersey City. So Jeff, you enlisted in the Marines and you ended up in Camp Lejeune, never went to Vietnam, but were fully able to go had you been called, correct?
Correct. I was trained, and with all the things you can imagine. That war was. I was an Amtrak operator, so if it was swamp, if it was woods or forest, I could drive through with a machine gun on the turret and all that kind of thing. So
and now you're on Amtrak, which is another story. Let me ask you a quick question. Was Vietnam necessary?
This is you know what? It just unfolded and nobody was ready. And it wasn't Nixon's fault at all. And you know who else? General Westmoreland really got a bad shake.
Let me ask you a question again. Let me ask you a question. The question was,
I'll answer. All right.
Question was it necessary?
It is complicated, and you're a lawyer, right? Everything's not yes or no.
Do you think it was, let me stop for a second. Do you think after everything that we know now, after what happened, after we found out what Ho Chi Minh was trying to accomplish, after 55, 58, whatever, 1,000 Americans go to that wall, look at those names and say, theoretically, yes, your death was necessary because of what? How is the world better today? How is society safer? How has communism been? This was a disaster. It was unnecessary. Everybody knows that. Even McNamara said it. How can you say it was complicated? It was unnecessary.
It started right after World War II. I mean, the French got out and we got in. And
why did we get in?
Blame JFK.
No.
JFK's a martyr. He gets no. Everything's Johnson and Nixon. It was all their fault. Eisenhower sent advisors. JFK added to it, and they were ready to go. They initiated the war.
Here's my question again. I don't want to cut you off. I'm sorry.
All right.
Answer my question. Was it necessary? Forget who who went in first. And
no. I know that's what you want to hear anyway.
Yes.
But I know. But do you agree, though, too, it's not so absolutely cut and dry? So
why not?
Well, JFK shouldn't have been sending any advisors. The Frenchmen
sending in.
Kennedy.
Wait a minute. Sending in an advisor, in truly an advisor, one of the things which he wanted to do later on, which was a big problem, he was a hawk at first, but he wanted to, let me finish, he wanted to withdraw, yes.
Kennedy?
Lyndon Johnson said, I will not be the first president to lose a war. He had Westmoreland and these idiots who thought that you could do body count. It was the most ridiculous waste of time. It shattered a disaster, a generation. It was, and by the way, I thank you for your call, but I cannot believe how anybody did this. It taught me one thing. I don't believe anything these people say. And what's happening is that this is the part that bothers me the most. Whenever it comes time for Memorial Day, whenever now is the time, people automatically feel, and they should, that yes, we should honor the people who died, who wore our uniform, irrespective of the war or what was done or not done. Doesn't matter. They did. They answered their call. Some were drafted, some were forced, whatever it is. But the problem with this is that people will normally say things like, freedom isn't free. And that's supposed to be it's like, yeah, and they died for a good reason. Wait a minute. This is what scares me. This can unintentionally encourage this acceptance of sacrifice and death and war as inevitable. Hey, it happened, or it's natural, and even noble parts of maintaining liberty. If you're going to maintain liberty, you're going to have war. You're going to have to die. No, the phrase, this idea conditions people and a lot of folks to see the cost of freedom. Sounds like Crosby, Stills and Nash, but the cost of freedom and liberty as permanent and unavoidable. And they want to frame loss and death and conflict, not as tragedies, not as mistakes, not as something to prevent, but as necessary. We got to pay our dues to preserve society. Nonsense. There's a word, it starts with bull, and I think you know the rest of it. That's the thing which I never understood. And here's the best part. And when I talk to people like that, I'm never going to tell a veteran that their service was unnecessary or they were unnecessary. I'm not even going to think about that. But all I know is nobody died. Not one person on that wall died and maintained my ability to speak in Cleveland because he died in Hanoi or Saigon or what? How did they figure this? How did this ever pose a threat? How did Ho Chi Minh ever? And they just extrapolate this. And one of the reasons why is that after World War II, the Great War, really not the First World War, which was another disaster. Nobody even understands that one. But after this noble effort where people came home and they were heralded as my God, as heroes, and the music and VJ Day in Times Square, and oh my God, we were top of the world, crushing Hitler and fascism, and it was incredible. And how these men came back on their ship. They went and they came back to decompress and to talk, and then they were met as heroes, and people later on who were born during the Vietnam or for the Vietnam era said, I have to do this. I have to do this because this was, and you would think that Korea, they would have learned something, but people said, I've got to do it. My grandfather was in the military. My father was in the military. It's my duty. Well, you know what? That was a very dangerous way of thinking. And what they also do is they tend to use your sense of patriotism against you. The first time I saw the Vietnam Wall, I don't know what I expected. I thought the wall was that section that you see, the main section. I didn't realize it was over acres of wall. It was everywhere. I couldn't believe it. And I'm thinking to myself, how did this happen? And I talked one time to McNamara on WABC when I was doing mornings. Those many years ago. And I asked him, I said, how did you get this so wrong? Ho Chi Minh was a nationalist. This was a civil war you were involved in. He says, yes, you're right. I said, well, how did you not know this? What were you thinking? And it was this mentality. It was this vestige, the smartest, the bravest, the McGeorge Bundys and the McNamaras, the brilliant people, normally people who would never have to fight. And by the way, Nixon and really Kennedy, Johnson to an extent. Remember they gave him a Silver Star or something. But anyway, those were the last of the World War II of the combatants. And when I see people talk about going to war, When I see Lindsey Graham say this, I'm thinking, Lindsey, you go. I'm right behind you. Come on, let's go. I'm with you, buddy. You go first and tell me all about it. Land on that beach. Go ahead. Show them how. It sickens me to think that I've got to go to some family, all those names, and you died. You gave your life for what? And I'm supposed to sit there and just clap dutifully? Nope. Sorry about that. I take it very, very, very seriously. This is one of those things which I cannot. Listen, if you want to be free, let me tell you who the biggest problem is. The people who are going to limit my freedom of speech, my freedom of expression, they're not in a foreign country. They're here in this country. They're politicians. And there are people who are stifling my freedom of speech as proxies. But you know that. Stop being, I don't want to say not anachronistic, but this wonderful sense of this kind of this nostalgic revelry, this, what am I trying to say? What is the word? We tend to repeat canned theories, which are not in and of themselves correct or incorrect, but we're very lazy. We're very lazy. And how we have forgotten the Vietnam veteran. It's a travesty. And Korea? Let me tell you something. You put this into perspective. You can play around with the numbers. Vietnam was like 55,000, let's say 10 years. Very, very simple. But Korea was like 50,000 in 3 years. And under the worst conditions you can imagine. And it ended with just a ceasefire. And thanks to O.P. Smith, and thanks to the most incredible, what is his name? Anyway, I'm rambling. Let's go back to the phones. Let's go to Lou in Floral Park. Lou, you're on Another Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Oh, Lionel, good morning. About 30 years ago, Grace Slick said in an interview that no rock and roller should perform over the age of 50. But yet we have many of them in their 80s.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying. Actually, I don't know what the hell I'm saying. But she was wrong, I guess.
Well, remember the old one, When I'm 64? It's the old thing.
The Beatles,
you know what happens. Yeah. Do you think there should be a law against?
I saw Eric Burden a couple of years ago, and it was painful. And I love the Animals.
Have you seen Frankie Valli?
Sometimes performers just got to give up.
Have you seen Frankie Valli?
No, I have not.
I hope you never do. I thank you, sir. I saw him one time. I hope to God somebody. If ever there was something that looked like elder abuse, it was this poor man just standing there. Put it this way. He made Joe Biden look like Rip Taylor. Okay. In comparison, it was that serious. Let's go to Fred in Atlantic, New Jersey. You're on Another Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Hey, Lionel. The scenario is you have a cardiac arrest.
Let me stop for a second. What scenario? What are you talking about?
Well, I'm talking about maggot therapy.
Well, see, you got to start off. You got to say, by the way, as to maggot therapy, the scenario is we're talking about Vietnam War, rock music. And you said, well, the scenario is thinking, what? Yes. Anyway. Okay. Maggot therapy. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. This gentleman has a cardiac arrest. He's in the hospital. He still has brain function. His pupils are still reacting to light. And the hospital writes him off and says he's going to die. So I inject myself into this family situation, which is a real situation that happened about 2 years ago. And,
now, excuse me. How are you injecting yourself? Excuse me, sir. How are you injecting yourself?
I'm a nurse, a friend of the family. I'm a
See, you got to tell us. See, Fred, you've got to tell us who you are. I'm not who you are, but what your role is. I just thought you were just a civilian injecting yourself. Okay, you're a nurse. Okay, I understand now. Go ahead.
Yes, and the family wants me to take a look, see what's going on. So I end up in the intensive care. It looks like they're slow walking this guy because they think he's brain dead. So I told him, I shine light into his eyes. His eyes are reacting to the light. I said, there's brain activity here. And like I said, they were slow walking him. All of a sudden they jump on him and put him on pressors to bring his blood pressure up. And here he is in intensive care for about 2 weeks. He ends up in another institution, transferred because they said they couldn't do anything for him in this one hospital. And he, at the end of the day, he ends up with this decubit eye, as you were talking about. That's the size of 2 fists.
And by the way, this is a decubitus ulcer. Hang on a minute. You got to let people know. Somebody may know the decubitus ulcer is like a bed sore. Okay.
Exactly what it is, a bed sore. It's 3 inches deep down to his spine. And he gets transferred home. And again, the family has all kinds of hope of that his brain may be revived because he has some sort of reaction to what they're saying, et cetera, et cetera. So the foul smell from the bed sore, et cetera, et cetera. I said to him, they wrote him off from the beginning. I said, let's try maggot therapy on him. What do you mean maggot therapy? I said, this is something that's real. So I call California and I get $300 worth of maggots.
Do you need a doctor to approve this?
No, I didn't need a doctor to approve it. No, I actually went beyond my scope of practice because the people who were taking care of him, just doing the palliative care, didn't like what I was doing. But the family wanted it, and I did it. So I put the maggots in there, and the family I only put half of them in there because that's what they recommended from the company I bought them from. So I put them in there, and they're doing their thing, and everything's great. But the family, he, as you described, gross. This is a gross thing.
Right.
So a couple of them, there's a screen they put over to the cubit eye. A couple of them got out, and I would joke with the family. I said the critters are running on the bed.
Right.
They did a great job initially, and I wanted to put the second batch in there, but the family could not handle any more of that. And,
why?
And in the meantime,
wait a minute. Why can they? Excuse me. Why can they not? Excuse me. Why can they not handle that versus rotting, smelling, decubitus that they can handle, but they couldn't stand the idea of maggots cleaning this up? That they intellectually couldn't handle that?
I can't explain it, but as someone gets queasy, and I think that the thing is getting out of the screen.
He's okay. Let me just help me with this. Help me with this. He's rotting and probably dying. Okay, just work with me on this. And somebody said, but one of these little bugs got out, so we're going to just scrap the whole thing because I find it intellectually, personally, aesthetically displeasing. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly right.
Well, what happened to him ultimately? Did he make it?
No, he didn't make it.
Okay.
And I unfortunately he didn't make it. It was. Well,
Fred, listen. I'll tell you what. I thank you for your call. I appreciate it. Please call me again. I wish we could have gotten almost to the maggot part has nothing to do with it. Listen, let me explain to you something. God bless American medicine. God bless America. But if you think that we have, quote, the best, not only that, the best care, the best, a lot of times we do, but a lot of times we don't. And we also don't have a kind of a working understanding of rudimentary, basic medical, kind of the way things kind of sort of work. And then all of a sudden, somebody will get involved in something really new. Like all of a sudden, methylene blue. Remember Bobby Kennedy? methylene blue, red light therapy. Remember the red light? What the hell is that about? I don't know. They just that they'll get interested, or they worry about seed oil or keto diets. But when it comes to, but just like fundamental, basic, rudimentary abecedarian stuff, no good. Oh, let's go to Will in New Jersey. You're on Another Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Hello?
Yeah, Will.
Oh, I heard you talking about Vietnam. I can tell you.
That's right.
Things. Well, first of all, Vietnam, Korea, you look at every war that we've been fighting, we don't call it a war because it's not. We just go there to make money for somebody. Vietnam,
well, if it's not a war, if it's not a war, what is it?
I mean, it's what they call them, conflicts. Or what? The point I'm making is this. Then I say we lost. We don't fight a war. We go to war. They had the Ho Chi Minh, that trail. We only could go so far. Then we had to stop. Korea had the same thing. Is that a war?
What would you have done to quote win Vietnam and not stop? What would you suggest?
No, not so much for a reason to go to war because it was all about money.
No, I understand that. You said we weren't allowed to finish. How would you have finished the war? What would you have done?
They didn't finish. They didn't want us to fight. All they wanted to do was make money.
Okay, thank you, Will. Call me again. This is circular and circuitous. Danny in Los Angeles. You're on Another Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Oh, hi, Lionel. Robert McNamara was the first president of Ford Motor Company who wasn't a Ford. But let me just go to this for a second. Joe DiMaggio had maggot therapy and treatment for his infected foot in 1949. Gets out of the hospital, and the Yankees win the World Series again. It's almost like a script in Hollywood. Jolted Joe. Married to Marilyn Monroe. You know why he was so successful? Because Marilyn gave him good advice. Now, guys, the guys who fought in Vietnam, and you're listening, you were heroes then, you are heroes now, and you will always be American heroes. Now, the political dinglings who messed up that war and should have never put those kids there, that was their time. That was when they were 18 years old in the 1960s. They were turning 18. We know about the deferments. We know that there were some rich kids that did go. One of the Walton kids was highly decorated, but a lot of them did not go. And we also had problems with, people didn't want to go. There was protests and everything. But I always wanted to ask people who were the parents and the adults of that time, weren't you fighting against this? If I was an adult, I wasn't around then, but if I was an adult then, I would say, where are you sending out kids? Our American boys knew where Vietnam was. They never even heard of Vietnam, okay? And that's the truth. And that's the riddle of the JFK assassination, because we don't know what JFK would have done. Don't tell me he would have done it or wouldn't have sent guys or he wouldn't.
No, Danny, wait for a second. Let me ask this. Danny, you're all over the place, and I like that. I appreciate that. Vietnam, right or wrong, which one was it? Was Vietnam necessary?
Vietnam was not necessary, no.
Very good. Now, let me ask you this. How could they have gotten this so wrong? How?
Because when you have people in power like Lyndon, listen, a lot of people think Lyndon Johnson had JFK knocked off. He just knocked off the president.
No, you're veering off. You're talking about something else. No. How could so many people be so wrong?
A lot of people or political people go along with it. They just go along with it.
Let me ask you this. Are the same people in the same methodology, the same, not the same people per se, but the same mindset? Are those folks the architects of our current foreign policy?
Of course, there are people that way who just go along. We know that. That's just the way it is. They want their paycheck. They're afraid to rock the boat and everything. And people who rock the boat, unfortunately, get marginalized and thrown to the side. Tommy Robinson, Pat Buchanan.
Danny, I thank you so much. I appreciate that immensely. It's incredible. By the way, I think I think Mr. Billy and I would have realized, as the Hughes Corporation was said, don't rock the boat, baby, don't turn the boat over. I think those are words that we live by and through. Let's go to Smooth Jazz in Hawaii. You're on Another Side of Midnight with Lionel.
It's smooth jazz that me and you both learned of in the 80s. I hated jazz until I heard smooth jazz, 101.9 New York. Smooth jazz, not cool jazz, but smooth jazz. I owe you my
I like as our writer says, our screener writes smooth, S-M-O-O-V-E.
Smooth jazz. That's my name, man. Smooth jazz.
S-M-O-O-V is in Victor E. Smooth.
V-E. Yeah. I'm calling for Hawaii.
Right.
Smooth jazz.
What is smooth? Explain smooth versus smooth.
Smooth, man. S-M-O-O-T-H-E.
No. Explain it. Define it. Smooth versus smooth.
Well, now define it. Sade, let's say Chick Corea, let's say Dr.
Explain
John.
the difference between the word smooth with a V and smooth, T-H. What's the difference?
I said smooth jazz, and I don't know what you wrote down.
Okay, thank you so much. Have a nice day, sir. Unbelievable. This is... You think somebody was going to say, well, the difference between it is because of such and such. Oh, my God. What is this? All that jazz, right? Yeah, but that's Yeah, but that's not jazz. That's a night. I got it. The word. that's. By the way, 1019 was a great iteration of a version of this. Now remember, there was bebop. There was all kinds of other versions of this. There was that West Coast kind of that Jerry Mulligan thing. Then there was bossa nova. Then around the 80s, it wasn't so much smooth. But remember people like Spyro Gyra and Chick Corea and Fatburger and even Wyndham Hill to an extent, and Al Di Meola and Gary Burton, CTI, Creed Taylor. That was that version. And then today, I don't even know. There is such good stuff. Thank God for YouTube to prevent some of the best, or show some of the best stuff ever. Let me do this. Let me try to recollect in the last moments, trying to ask what I think are some of the simplest questions I've ever asked in my life. But then again, what do I know? 800-848-9222. This is Lionel with you on Another Side of Midnight. Anyway, let me see what I can do. Let's see how many calls we can take before we slam the lid on this exposition, this disquisition. I've had such a great time being with you. Let's go to Mark in Connecticut. Mark, you're on the Another Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Hi. I just wanted to comment on the Vietnam War Memorial in Washington.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
I've been there. It's very moving, but I had a good friend who served in Vietnam. He was also a Yaley and a huge fan of Yale football, and he said, there's something you should think about when you go there. And he said Maya Lin, who is the architect who designed the memorial, was a Yale architecture student and also a Vietnamese refugee. Mm-hmm. And he said, think about this. The wall, the Vietnam War Memorial, is a solid wall of granite with water going down it into a long trough. Mm-hmm. And he said every time he would go into the men's room at the Yale Bowl, because he was a huge Yale fan, he said the urinal is a long wall of granite with water going down it that goes into a trough. And he said, every time I see that, I just shake my head. Something doesn't seem right.
Do you think that the architect of this was making some kind of juxtaposition? Because believe it or not, that symbology might have been more apt than one would think. I think any semiotician would realize that maybe there's something to that.
I'm not an architect, but
you don't have to be. You don't have to be.
Yeah,
no.
I
you don't have to be
possible.
Yes, like for example, if
if
you commission me for a painting of you, and I put a pomegranate with an onion ring on it, and I'm saying, well, that's you. And you say, that doesn't look like me. And I'm saying, well, you're not an artist. I say, no, but I've got eyes. I don't need to be an artist. And I thank you for your call, Mark. I despise war. I despise it. And we are far too easy, especially we live in this world today. Oh, we love to talk about war. Sean Ryan show and what's that name? Glocko or all of these ex-Navy SEALs. And look at the guy who ran against Massey. Guy never said a word, but he was a Navy SEAL. That's good enough. Okay, that's good. But I want to know a little bit more about who these people are. The way they sit around where they always have to have a lot of tats. You've got to have the hat backwards, the beard. You've got to look like Delta Force. It's a new, how do I say this? It's a new, I guess you'd call it a new kind of a motif of sorts. And that's great. And I appreciate that. But most of what we're seeing right now is war that is completely and totally unnecessary. Let's go to Jeff in Illinois. Jeff, you're on Another Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Hello,
Jeff.
Hello. We have a lot of unsung heroes, that just arise to the occasion.
Mm-hmm.
I have a daughter that recently saved a guy from burning car. She's about your age. She's a grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
But, I guess it's just the occasion can come up in civilian life just as well as in the military.
Oh, certainly. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I thank you for your call, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. Let's go to Joel in Manhattan. Joel, you're on Another Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Hi, Lionel.
Hello, Joel.
My father was in the Vietnam War. He was there, and that was a war that was doomed to failure for several reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was unnecessary, basically, because we were involved in a Civil War conflict, and we couldn't win it because we were fighting in the wrong attitudes, like Macklin era and everything. They were influenced by the media, who were putting out what was going on, and things were floating around. The amount of people killed in action and the amount of body count that we had against them. It was a war that was doomed to failure. That said, it was a war that was dictated by the media as well, because everybody was made wrong who was fighting there. Case in point, my father was U.S. military chaplain. He was actually head of the military U.S. military division in Chulai, which is basically the largest division in Vietnam at the time. And this was a year after the My Lai massacre with Lieutenant Kelly. Do you remember that?
I do, and I'm so sorry, my dear Joel. I must run. You know what? Perhaps maybe we can continue this tomorrow. Thank you so very much. Vinny and Mr. Lee, thank you so much for stewarding the helm. You are priceless, my friends. Thank you so much. And thank you for listening. Thank you for participating. And thank you for being a part of this. We'll be back tomorrow again. Same bad time, same bad channel. Again, wishing you all the best. Thank you so much for listening. And again, I don't want to say Happy Memorial Day, but honor Memorial Day. And remember exactly what it is. Thank you so much for being with us. Remember, my friends, the monkey's dead. The show's over. Sue you. Dad.